everyone. Thank you so much for joining our third session of the day. We're going to hit into some of the technology side of things. So today I'm Lenise Willis, Editor-in-Chief of Gifts and Decorative Accessories, and I'll be your host for this session. So welcome to our Together Retail Conference. If you're just joining us, we have a really exciting panel. First, though, before we dip into our panelists and pick their brains a little bit, we do want to thank our amazing sponsors who help us put this on, and we couldn't do it without their support. So One Coast is our headline sponsor for this virtual conference, Together We Retail, and we do want to share a message that they've prepared on behalf of Heart on Main Street, which is a new nonprofit in our industry. So we do want to share a brief message with them first. So just to introduce our panelists here, we have Nate Barr. He is a very innovative maker and owner of Zootility, which is a wholesaler of really innovative gifts. And he is very experienced with using AI to help run his business. So we're excited to talk with you today, Nate. Thank you so much for joining today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yes, we also have John Shapiro. He is the Senior Vice President of Product and Retail at Lightspeed Commerce. I'm so excited to have you here today. And you guys have really been in the news lately with giftsanddeck.com because you've rolled out a lot of really neat features that I know we're going to get into later today that will help retailers, grow their business and make better use of their time, because we want to talk about how technology can make your time work better for you, make your life a little easier and be more efficient as business owners. So John, I want to start with you because you at Lightspeed Commerce, I know you guys have sort of your finger on the pulse of changing technology. And I know we could talk for hours upon hours, because if you think about each little topic or area of our industry that could benefit from tech, so we'll kind of break it down a little bit. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is inventory management, because I know that's something that, you guys can help with. So can you tell us a little bit about the modern tech advances that can help aid retailers keep track of their inventory and kind of know what to order and when to order?
Absolutely. And first of all, I just want to say thanks for having me on. Really excited to be here and excited for this conversation. I'll start by saying that, oftentimes when we talk to small businesses, a common method of inventory management is what I kind of affectionately refer to as the shelf method, which is you kind of walk around and see which shelves are empty and go order more of that. And that can work at a single location, but especially as businesses grow, that gets much harder to track and manage and stay on top of. And inventory is really the lifeblood of your business. It's also tricky because if you have too little, then you're going to miss out on sales. If you have too much, then you're tying up precious dollars in things that are sitting on the shelf and not moving. So Lightspeed has a few pieces that kind of really fit into the various parts of how you think about inventory, all the way up from receiving inventory. You can place orders, being able to track and receive when those orders come in and how much inventory you have and which location they're in is really critical, to then getting into tracking, selling, and analytics around making sure that you're never missing a sale because you have the right inventory. And I think finally, what we also offer is the ability to do things like back order or special order. So if a customer is standing in front of you at the store, being able to fulfill that order and drop ship it directly from a vendor is something that we're building out and adding more into the point of sale as we start integrating an acquisition we did a couple of years ago called New Order, which helps us partner and work with thousands of brands. So it's really all about kind of thinking about inventory not just as a one point in time but a process that you use to manage and run your business. And then using the analytics inside of Lightspeed to help you understand, are you ordering too much or ordering too little? How do you order the right amount? But then also using some of the capabilities that we're offering to fill orders if you happen to be out of a particular item.
Okay, awesome. And I did forget to say we are accepting questions. So if there's anyone watching and you want to submit a question, you can do so through the Q&A function. And then if we have time at the end of our session today, I'll sort of go through those questions and ask them. So feel free throughout the panel to add any questions that you might have for our panelists. And so John, I love that you kind of brought up this whole process, the whole process of inventory. You know, it's not like a quick, simple buy. But you guys also have a new function that we recently wrote about that helps retailers to organize said inventory and maybe even strategize themes. Can you share a little bit about that too? Because I loved when I read that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this gets back to how do you think about your catalog and your product catalog? So being able to organize your product catalog into families and have keep track of the different variants that you might have. We call it dimensions, but basically, you know, sometimes it might be size, it might be color. Being able to very quickly and easily pull up a particular item, see what's in stock, see which items, which variants of that item across those dimensions might be running low or might be running high. And what we recently added is the ability to bulk change pricing, because one of the things that may not be immediately obvious is that kind of inventory and pricing are really two sides of the same coin. That if you're sitting on too much inventory, you want to take price or promotion actions. If you're sitting on too little inventory, that might give you an ability to increase margin and make a little bit more profit from those items that are moving quickly. So being able to see and track that inventory, and then very quickly what we call bulk price edits, where you can go select a number of different items and apply a pricing change across all of those or across all of those different product families can be a real time saver for a small business.
Awesome. And I think too, you kind of talked about how it can be helpful when you strategize your visual merchandising components too, right? Because you can sort of filter and search through to see if you want to do particular themed in your visual merchandising. It can be really helpful to plan it all out instead of it just being an idea in your head, which I thought was really interesting.
That's right. And our catalog right now in your point of sale, you are able to have rich content, images, things like that. What I also want to preview and share, you know, this is kind of things that are, you know, may be coming down the line, which is, as you can imagine, as we think about new order and the visual merchandising capabilities that we offer brands and larger retailers, our philosophy is that we want to level the playing field and really provide every retailer with every chance to succeed and win. So you can imagine that being able to see visual assortments, visual merchandising suggestions, you know, kind of finding its way across the full spectrum of retailers that we serve and support.
Awesome. And then I also am curious about, you know, e-commerce platforms have constantly been evolving. And I know nowadays we have to keep track of so many different things. You know, we have, when we think about omni-channel, can you talk a little bit about how e-commerce platforms have evolved to help us keep track of multiple channels at one time?
Absolutely. That's a real challenge, particularly for a brick and mortar business who might not have a lot of expertise in e-commerce. So one of the things that we want to focus on is not requiring you to drive traffic to your own website and having that be the sole source of online visitors and online traffic for you as a small business. So what we have through our e-commerce and omni-channel solution is an ability to actually plug into Instagram, plug into your social media channels. Your own website is great too. Like we encourage you to have that from a branding standpoint, but it's not the only place that we want to be able to support you being able to transact online. So if you're using Lightspeed, then you're able to really tie together all your different online platforms through our e-commerce offering.
Awesome. All right, great. So I know a big keyword is AI, and I'm sure that's why a lot of people have joined today. You know, we're all figuring it out, and it's incredibly useful. And I know it can also be scary. I know a lot of people, when we first started talking about this, is like, what does this mean? Like, what does this mean for, you know, all of our different industries and our careers and our roles? But it can be so incredibly helpful, especially as I feel like we're all wearing like 18 different hats in the independent retail industry. And Nate, we just struck up a conversation at, I think it was Dallas Total Home and Gift Show. And you were sharing all these different ways that you've been using AI bots in your business. And I was like, oh, you would be perfect for this panel. So can we chat a little, let's switch over and talk about the benefits of AI and how we shouldn't be scared of it. It can help you really make use of your time. So can you share a little bit about how are you using AI right now as a wholesale business owner?
Sure. Yeah, it's a fascinating area that just emerged the end of last year for most of us. It's been in development for a long time, but it really only became something that's usable by the public with the release of ChatGPT, which is free to use on OpenAI's website. And that's where I've been experimenting and using it mostly. It's free to use with the version they call 3.5, which is less sophisticated than their most sophisticated current model, which they call ChatGPT 4. But for free, you can play around and see what it can do. I'm paying $20 a month for that version 4. And what it lets me do is every time I have a question I don't know how to answer, instead of asking my colleague, which I might have done before, and trying to get a consensus of people in the office to answer something, or going on Google and reading the top 4 results and trying to piece together the information there, I find I can often just drop my question into this chat window, which it starts off as a single text line, but you can keep typing and write an entire essay to it. The responses I get back, and like many people have discovered, are quite profound, not just in how it's able to understand what you put in and how it can compose the response, but the insights of the content that it can make. So I feel like, an easy kind of example of this that's relevant is when we're doing new product development, we need to come up with new product names. And it's now the first place I turn to when I'm thinking about naming a product. And often the name options it spits out aren't the ones that I'm going to use, but it gets the ball rolling a lot faster than trying to have a brainstorming session in the office. And it's essentially pulling from all of the world's knowledge to answer your question, which is more than anybody in the office can do. But ultimately, you do have a little bit more relevant information as to the application that you're trying to name, who your market is, who your audience is. And so what I've found is that when the responses aren't what I'm looking for, it's easy for a lot of people to say, oh, it's not as sophisticated as I hoped. It's a simple model. It's cool how it can understand me and how it can respond in what seems like a human voice, but it doesn't have very good depth. And in fact, I've found that that's quite the opposite. The thing you have to do is provide it all of the context that you know in order for it to have the same understanding that you do. And when you do that, the responses are uncanny in its ability to provide suggestions that are highly usable. So sometimes I end up having 3 or 4, back and forth conversations to add additional information to ask it to try again with these additional constraints or inputs so that it can better understand what I'm trying to accomplish. And you can just give it feedback. And it's surprising how it can then rework its answer based on that input to be even more relevant. I don't know. Some other examples are, you're composing an email to someone and you want to know how it's going to land. Instead of sending it to someone else in your office and asking them to spend half an hour thinking about your email and writing comments back to you, just put it in there and ask it to rework it. When we were doing a job posting recently, we took the job description from another employee in the office that was similar, dropped that in and said, we want it to be similar to this description, but we're going to add in these additional roles. Now create the posting that we could put on Indeed, and write out what it drops was good enough for us to just modify a couple things and then copy and paste it. Saving what might have been 2 or 3 hours for someone to think of that from scratch, and it's done in 5 minutes. We also then said, great, now we are interviewing this candidate. Give us the questions that we should ask this candidate. And it spat out a list of questions based off of the context that it already had, which was the job description that it wrote. I then further said, what are some key factors for us to keep in mind as the interviewers when we're listening to the responses to these questions? So there's like multiple layers that you can have it dive into if you just kind of like think creatively about what you might be able to ask it to do for you.
Yeah, I love
another
that.
obvious one that you see a lot of people doing is just product descriptions. You can take your information from your website, drop that in and ask it to rework it, or you can, the thing I love is that you don't have to write an eloquent letter to ChatGPT. You can just have a mind dump of everything that's on your mind related to a topic of what a product, its features and who its users are. And it can be out of order. It can be grammatically incorrect. It can have all kinds of mistakes in it. And then it'll get the gist of it and take it from there and give you something back to get the ball rolling. So maybe that's I don't know if that is a good place to get started on this topic.
Yeah, no, I loved it. You covered a lot of ground and a lot of sub questions that I had, but I love that you pointed out all of the different ways or not functionalities, but the different ways you can implement it. So like email proofing, I wouldn't have thought of that. And, I think we all are like, oh, does this sound okay? Like we all do that in our mind. So I love like email proofing, like you said, writing product descriptions, which is great for wholesalers and retailers to know, because sometimes it's like, and if you're doing it for so many of them, it's nice to have like a reboot, someone to help you get the creative juices flowing. I think you said before you use it throughout the process of producing your own wholesale catalog, incorporating it into that process. I know now like most social management platforms have an AI function now to help you write some of those social posts. I'm sure ChatGPT could do it as well. But yeah, I just love talking about like the different ways, that it can be used.
Yeah, you're definitely right on the topic of it's starting to make its way into other applications, whether it's when you're going to write a social post or you're in Shopify writing the product description. There's a little magic star icon that you can click on, and it'll generate the product title or the description for you.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that it's missing there is the ability for you to have a back and forth with it and to provide it more context. So I have found that if you're doing something really simple, it's great. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit more insightful, that going over to a separate tool from the application that you're in and providing more context to what you're trying to accomplish can provide better results.
Absolutely. And then I just wanted to touch on quickly, you did mention it, but I wanted to explore it a little bit more about what tips would you give someone who's starting out with ChatGPT? Because you've really learned how to have that conversation, like how to say, no, do it this way, or, what sort of instructions are you giving ChatGPT to get a better product back?
Yeah. I like to start off the conversation by telling it who I am. And I wear different hats as a business owner. So sometimes I say, as a product developer for an outdoor, lifestyle brand, I need to develop I have a new product I'm developing that I need to name. here are some bunch of details about the product. Here are some names of other products in our line already. What do you suggest? Or I'll say things like, here's the draft of my current email, and then you paste it in, and then below that say, now I would like you to rework this, and you can give it some instruction as to how you want that to happen. Or you can say, here's an additional document that lays out our corporate strategy. Can you find mistake or like misalignment between this email and this document? So like comparing A to B, using one thing as a template and providing, fresh input and trying to apply to that template, giving it the understanding of who you are, what your business is. I've also said, here's the description from our website of who we are, and pasted that in. You can also tell it, I'm going to do something. Here's the plan of what you and I are going to do together, ChatGPT. Please let me know that you understand, and then I'll proceed. So it lets you stop it from trying to just spit out an answer to you immediately and wait for your additional input before it does that. So that you can kind of break it up and make sure that it has the correct understanding, and you can correct it if you realize that there's some context that you were missing in that initial conversation before you started it on its task. And it helps you just, not get it too far ahead of itself or making it seem like the input isn't useful before you've even planned to get started.
Love it. So John, I want to switch to you because I know you're very familiar with the world of AI as well. So I want to talk about other ways that AI, artificial intelligence is what we're talking about. I don't know if I said that to the people watching. How it can help retailers and their day-to-day, and perhaps even improve the customer experience, because I know this is a vast world with a lot of different implications.
Yeah, and I think I'll maybe take a moment to go a little bit broader about AI, because I think we covered a really good sub segment and an exciting one, generative AI. You might also hear that referred to as Gen AI. That's what Chat GPT is. There's also imagery creation, where you can type in an image that you want to, particular image that you want to be created, and kind of like magic, it spits out that image for you. I'll probably say part of why I think it's so exciting is there were really, in my experience, in my personal life, 3 moments where I just kind of used something and my mind was blown. That was Google back in, at the risk of dating myself, 2001 or so, when you type in a search and it found you pages that were actually relevant and actually matched that search that you put in there. The second one was using the iPhone, where prior to that it was Palm Pilots or very unresponsive mobile devices. And the third one was using ChatGPT last year in the ways that Nate described, and just the comprehension and sort of insight that it comes back with is pretty mind blowing. And you can't, those first 2 waves, you can know and look back, really created a lot of technology innovation in many ways that were hard to predict. I think it's going to be the same here. I think we're going to look back 3, 5, 10 years from now and just be astounded about how much progress has happened. So I think the kind of main point is every tool, Lightspeed included, is going to have generative AI as part of it. I think they're going to be general purpose tools like ChatGPT that gives you that ability to go back and forth and refine your search. But I also do want to call out other ways that we're using AI that isn't necessarily generative, but is extremely useful. And one example is that, kind of coming back to that inventory management we were talking about earlier, one of the things that AI can do is by harnessing and leveraging the data that we have about lots and lots of retailers, thousands and thousands of retailers, to predict how much of a particular item you should be ordering. So instead of you having to only rely on your own data or your own hunches, if you don't have that data, you're able to leverage that wisdom of the crowds, if you will, and Lightspeed can go back and say, we think, you're going to order 20. We think you should order 30. or 10, whether it's based on seasonality, whether it's based on trends in your area or things that we're seeing from other retailers around you. That's a use of AI where we're able to come back and use the data and the models that we have to give you recommendations on how much to order. I think a lot of the other examples that Nate was describing, things like generating copy for your websites, generating or maybe managing images for your website or for your point of sale are other uses that you can imagine over time coming in as well.
Awesome. Love it. Have we touched, is there anything else we can touch on as far as how it can make it more seamless for a customer? I mean, I know there's like, we could talk about this for hours. But have either of you used it as far as a chat bot to help direct customers to answer questions instead of the store owner having to constantly be there to like guide people through their website? Just as far as using AI as almost like a customer support function. Is that a smart idea?
I think it's coming. We haven't used it in that way yet. I'm kind of waiting for the technology to get integrated into the software that we're currently using, or see someone get so far ahead using it and making it so easy for us to use that it makes sense for us to switch, for instance, which customer inbox solution we are using. But at the moment, no, I haven't tried any of that stuff, but it seems like it's ripe for the picking as something that, like John was saying, we will see be developed over the next several years and rolled out and just become something that we think of as like, oh yeah, well, of course, there was an initial response drafted for us by the software, and all we have to do is edit it or hit send instead of having to come up with the whole entire email from scratch. We've obviously all seen that like the bot could very easily be put on the website as something that people could interface with. So I think that might be another place that very quickly we'll see groups like Shopify adding it into their inbox solution that they provide. But I haven't tried yet. I don't know if John has some other things that he could talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still in the early innings. One example I'll share is prior to joining Lightspeed, I spent quite a bit of time at Wayfair, both on the customer side and on the supplier side. And something that they shared recently in a beta form is called Decorative, where you basically take a photo of your room, you upload it, and it uses generative AI to come back with a suggestion on kind of, also you provide the style that you want to kind of revamp your room in. And it comes back with suggestions of products, wall art, wallpaper, things like that. And it actually it creates an image of what your room will look like with all those items in it. So I think that can be a good example of where tools like Lightspeed, like Shopify, like others over time will shift to help customers shop as well. And what I think is really personally exciting for me to be joining Lightspeed, and I spent a lot of time at Intuit, which had a similar mission, is being able to support small businesses with the technology that they wouldn't be able to create on their own. And we can create it for them and help them serve their customers and utilizing them.
Awesome. We do have a question from CC Davis, who asked, what is the best AI for image or logo generation? So if either of you have recommendations on the best AI, I guess, platform or feature to help create images or logos.
I've played around with Dolly, which is like Salvador Dali, which is the OpenAI image creation tool. And it's great at making things that are non-text based. So if you have a specific artist style that you want it to be created in the shape of, it can do some pretty interesting things. I like how that one, you can paint part of the result and tell it to redo that portion of it while keeping other parts of it constant. So if you get a dog that comes out with 3 legs, you can paint where the 4th leg should have been and then tell it to redo it, and it's able to generate it. I would say the best use of it is not to have it create the entire logo for you, but like, say for instance, the dog is something that you have a specific way that you want it to look. Tell it what you want, take that and then put it into Illustrator and then build your image around that. I've also tried Midjourney, which is extremely obtuse as to the interface of how you work with it. So it's not user-friendly at all in the way that DALL-E is. I think it's a bit more powerful in that you can bring your own images and meld them into the result. But when I've played around with that, trying to take a picture of a handbag and tell it that I want to see it on a model who's, on a wharf by the sea, the results are a mismatch of three armed women, handbags that become kind of like three straps kind of like wrapping around someone. It kind of follows the general concept, but then gets lost in the weeds of directions that the image could be generated in, but aren't what a person would choose. So I found that even though Midjourney seems more powerful, it hasn't been great for my results. I canceled my subscription to that one, and I'll wait to see when they roll out something more powerful. And I haven't tried any other ones as of yet.
Here's getting a little meta. I haven't done this personally, but I've heard and seen seen people share good results of using ChatGPT to generate a Midjourney query that you then
Nice.
put in and then see how it goes.
I like that idea.
All right. I think that's all of our questions right now. I do, because both of you are like on the cutting edge of like, you always know what's going on. So are there places that, how do you stay up to date on changing technologies and even being on the forefront of testing out and using AI? Like, how do you keep your ear to the ground? Are there podcasts or magazines or people that you watch? Like, how do you keep staying informed?
The place that I pay attention to for software news, and a lot of this is bubbled up there, is this forum called Hacker News, which sounds like it's people doing malicious things, but actually it's meant to be like, we're all hackers as entrepreneurs trying to start new things and try new stuff. And so people are constantly sharing articles that are kind of pushing the envelope of technology. So that's how I've first come across it. But as soon as you hear it enough times, it's worth just diving in and trying it for yourself. It's surprising how approachable these products are now. It's as easy as joining, email and sending off your first email to a friend. So it's extremely simple, and there's almost no reason not to try it out and see what it can do for you.
Awesome. John?
Yeah, I mean, I would say can maybe also add, I found Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, now known as X, as a good place to, once you start clicking on and following and interacting with content that describes AI or describes some of the new tools, the algorithm tends to recommend you more of those as well. Also, TechCrunch, I found it can be a good overall source of information.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for speaking with us today and sharing your knowledge.